Hello everyone, what's up? Welcome to the GMB channel. Hope you will enjoy our video. Before we begins, hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Here is the news title. Rachel Reeves is proof Keir Starmer's pledge to restore trust was a sick joke. The Chancellor is tasked with running the economy, yet can't even get the basics right. Is there actually anything on Rachel Reeves's infamous CV that's true? First, she said she'd worked at the Bank of England for a decade as an economist when it was 5.5 years. And for much of that time, she worked as a junior analyst, not an economist. Now it's been discovered she and 2 colleagues at HBOS, where she'd claimed she was an economist but was actually a middle manager in the customer support team, bought lavish dinners, handbags, perfume and gifts on the company credit card, and were subsequently investigated for using the bank's money to fund a lifestyle. This has all been revealed courtesy of a BBC investigation, which claimed she had indeed been the subject of an investigation into expense abuse. Although when the claims were put to Reeves months ago by a newspaper, she vigorously denied them. Today the story has shifted, and Reeves now says she has no recollection of being investigated, which is odd because, as far as we know, she doesn't have early onset Alzheimer's, and claims she and the 2 other bosses involved in the investigation suddenly chose to leave before they could be formally interviewed about the fiddling investigation. It's clear now that Starmer's promise to restore trust in politics was just a sick joke. We have a chancellor who's trashed the economy in just 7 months, and the latest data shows that, thanks to her, we're worse off now than we ever were under the Tories. Reeves, who has lied on her CV, has to go. Hell, she can't even manage her own CV, never mind the economy. I don't usually attack women on the basis of how they look, but I'll make an exception for Sue Gray, who turned up to take her seat in the House of Lords this week looking like she'd been pulled through a hedge backwards. Did she not think getting a peerage warranted a wash and blow dry and a bit of makeup? Or was she employing the kind of inverted snobbery which says, "Take me as I am"? Sadly, we'd all prefer not to take Miss Gray in any way, shape, or form, but thanks to Starmer's lunacy in rewarding her for failure, she's now Baroness Gray, and we're stuck with her. Another day, another front-page drama story from Katie Price. This time, well, most of the time, it's about her son Harvey, who she says he's going on Ozempic to save his life. Well, actually, he's going on it to lose weight, because he's morbidly obese, but he's not dying. And if he actually did have a heart problem, which Price says he could soon have, he wouldn't be allowed to take the drug because all the reputable companies who sell it have safeguards in place. Mine, Juniper, recently refused a friend who had a heart condition. But never mind the facts. Price is determined to dramatize and monetize everything. Kaiser not disagreed with anything Trump's done since the election, but what he's doing with Ukraine is shameful. His vanity in wanting to be the man who ends the war between the 2 countries means he's handing Ukraine to Putin on a platter and reinforcing the belief that aggressors can invade any country they feel like and be rewarded for it. Trump says he's brokering peace. No, he's brokering a surrender, and he's not including the man he wants to surrender, Zelensky, in the talks. It's repugnant. The Ukrainians have fought valiantly for 3 years. With more help from the West, they could have won. But this contemptible deal will, to Ukrainians, mean that every death will have been in vain, and that Putin has won. Paspa. How the hell was drunken Chelsea footballer Sam Kerr cleared of racially abusing a police officer? She'd called fucking stupid and white? Had Kerr, who describes herself as Anglo-Indian, been white, and called a copper of color fudding stupid and black, she'd have been convicted in a nanosecond. I know it. You know it. Here's another 2-tier justice. Pakistani pedophile dodging deportation shows ECHR has been utterly bastardized. Our new Attorney General has publicly stated that he won't challenge a single ECHR ruling. In recent days, we've seen a Pakistani pedophile allowed to stay here because his children would miss him. An Albanian criminal escaped deportation because his son had an aversion to foreign chicken nuggets. And a Palestinian family of 6 being allowed to come here under the Ukraine scheme, even though they're not Ukrainian. A Nigerian woman, whose asylum applications have been turned down 8 times, was told she could stay after she joined a terrorist group, presumably on advice from a lawyer, which she knew would allow her to stay. Oh, and a Portuguese criminal can't be deported because his child needs speech therapy. Aren't there speech therapists in Portugal? All of which is ludicrous and proves that now anyone who asks to stay here can. And that's because our excuse for a government has zero control over immigration, and our lefty judges and human rights lawyers are now abusing ECHR laws and interpreting them to mean whatever the hell they want. It's them who are now running immigration policy, not the elected government. It's them who gets to say who stays. Sorry, but this bastardization of the ECHR Convention is not what it was designed for. It was drafted after the Second World War and the Holocaust, to protect the people from the state, and to ensure the atrocities committed would never be repeated. It was not about people being deprived of chicken nuggets and facilitating the activities of pedophiles and criminals. But as long as we have a government too weaselly to send these chancers back, an Attorney General Lord Hermer, who's publicly stated he won't challenge any ECHR ruling, and armies of greedy human rights lawyers who will exploit ECHR laws for their own financial gain, were sunk. This week's ruling, by Judge Hugo Norton Taylor, who just happens to be the son of pro-Palestinian journalist and civil rights campaigner, to allow a Palestinian family to settle here, could potentially open the floodgates to 2 million Palestinians at risk of displacement, and to people from conflict zones all over the world. Norton Taylor said it was irrelevant he'd allowed them to come under a scheme meant for Ukrainians. Well, actually it wasn't. He just decided it was, and in doing so, imposed his own DIY asylum policy. He also said the public interest was irrelevant to his decision, which showed his total contempt for democracy. This man isn't elected. It's not his job to decide immigration policy, and Starmer needs to slap him down pronto. Because what he did this week amounts to judicial activism in support of an agenda he knows the majority of Brits have rejected. The thing about Starmer and his band of Muppets is that come the election we can kick them out, and we will. But judges and lawyers aren't elected, so when they behave badly, follow their own agendas, they're sod all we can do, which is why they've become as tyrannical as they now are. Sorry, but I don't want a single Gazan refugee coming here. Apart from the fact we can't cope with another influx, the fact is we have no way of assessing the risk in the way we have with Ukrainians and people from Hong Kong. We have no idea if these people have been radicalized by Hamas. We do know that a majority still vote for and support the terror group and refuse to acknowledge their atrocities. It also speaks volumes that Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon have all refused to take Palestinians. But a British judge says, hey, come on down. By 2032, our population will have soared to 72.5 million, and 90% of that increase, 6.6 million people, will be solely down to immigration. That's before you factor in Palestinians, etc., and our infrastructure simply can't take it. It will also be catastrophic financially and for social cohesion. Arrogant judges and lawyers allowing this to happen are a danger to our safety and our national security. And if we are to be kept safe, they have to be made to butt out of politics, policy, and democracy. It's just not their business. The picture of Meghan resting her head on Harry's shoulders at the Invictus Games, looking all wistful and loved up, made me laugh out loud. Who does she think she's kidding? She needs to brush upon her acting skills. This is how couples look in the first few months of their romance, not 7 years, 2 kids, and God knows how many scandals in This week, Keir Starmer, the man who has turned cock-ups into an art form, replaced disgraced Health Minister Andrew Gwynn, the nitwit who said he hoped a pensioner, who'd asked him to sort out her bins, would be dead before the next election, with Ashley Dalton, who famously said people should be able to identify as llamas, and those who do should be treated with respect and dignity. Proof. Keir Starmer's pledge to restore trust was a sick joke. The economy in the hands of an untrustworthy chancellor. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is arguably one of the most crucial figures in British politics. Tasked with managing the economy, ensuring financial stability, and making decisions that affect millions, the person in this role must be beyond reproach. Yet we find ourselves in a situation where Rachel Reeves, a woman with a history of misleading statements and questionable ethics, holds this critical position. It begs the question, how did we end up here? And what does it say about Keir Starmer's promise to restore trust in politics? Reeves's credibility has been under scrutiny for some time, and recent revelations only add to the growing list of concerns. She previously claimed to have worked at the Bank of England for a decade as an economist. In reality, she worked there for 5.5 years, and much of that time was spent as a junior analyst rather than in the prestigious economist role she touted. The embellishment of her resume should have been a major red flag. But it gets worse. A BBC investigation recently revealed that Reeves was investigated for expense abuse during her time at HBOS, despite her initial vehement denials when the story was first broached by a newspaper. She and 2 colleagues reportedly used the company's credit card to fund an extravagant lifestyle, dining at lavish restaurants, purchasing expensive handbags, perfume, and gifts. The fact that she now claims to have no recollection of the investigation raises further suspicion. Surely someone in her position would remember being the subject of an inquiry into financial misconduct. It is worth emphasizing that Reeves, along with the 2 other managers involved, conveniently left before they could be formally interviewed. Does this sound like the behavior of someone with integrity? Hardly. Starmer's broken promise on trust Keir. Starmer came to power with a promise to restore trust in politics. His commitment to integrity was a key selling point after the tumultuous years of Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. But if Starmer truly valued trust, would he allow someone with a history of deceit and financial mismanagement to run the economy? Since taking office, Reeves has presided over an economic downturn that has left Britain in a worse state than it was under the Tories. In just 7 months, the economy has deteriorated further, with growth stagnating and inflationary pressures worsening. Her lack of financial acumen, paired with her questionable ethics, makes her wholly unsuitable for the position she holds. If Starmer were serious about trust and transparency, Reeves would be forced to resign. But that's unlikely to happen because, as we are beginning to see, the Labour government is just as prone to cronyism and dishonesty as its predecessors. A tangled web of deceit and hypocrisy. Reeves's CV is not the only aspect of her credibility that has been questioned. How can we trust a chancellor who can't even be truthful about her own professional background? If she is willing to lie about something as fundamental as her qualifications, how can we be assured that she is being honest about the state of our economy? In any other profession, lying on a CV would result in immediate dismissal. The private sector would not tolerate such dishonesty. Yet in politics, it appears to be acceptable for those in power to deceive the public and face no consequences. This double standard is infuriating and underscores the need for greater accountability in government. The Sue Gray saga, another example of Labour's hypocrisy. Rachel Reeves is not the only member of Labour's inner circle with an integrity problem. Sue Gray, a former senior civil servant, was controversially appointed as Starmer's chief of staff and subsequently granted a peerage. When she appeared in the House of Lords this week, her disheveled appearance became a talking point, reinforcing concerns about her suitability for such a position. While criticizing someone's appearance is usually unnecessary, the reality is that those in positions of power should present themselves with a level of professionalism that reflects their status. Gray's appointment was already controversial, given her role in investigating Boris Johnson's government, and her apparent lack of regard for decorum does little to alleviate concerns about her credibility. Starmer's decision to reward her with a peerage is yet another sign that his government is not as different from its predecessors in the culture of sensationalism. Meanwhile, another story dominating headlines is Katie Price's latest drama involving her son, Harvey. Price claims he is going on Ozempic to save his life. While it is true that Harvey is morbidly obese, the sensationalism surrounding his health is a classic example of Price's ongoing attempts to monetize personal struggles. Weight loss medication should be prescribed responsibly, and reputable. Companies enforce strict safeguards. If Harvey truly had an underlying heart condition, as Price suggests, he would likely be ineligible for Ozempic. Yet this reality does not deter Price from using her son's condition for media attention. This kind of exploitation is deeply concerning and reflects a broader cultural issue where personal struggles are commodified for public consumption. Trump, Ukraine, and the danger of appeasement. While domestic issues are pressing, the international stage presents its own set of troubling developments. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, who has largely been consistent in his policy positions, has taken a deeply concerning stance on Ukraine. His desire to end the war by negotiating a deal with Vladimir Putin, without directly involving Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, is nothing short of a betrayal. The idea that peace can be brokered without consulting the leader of the nation under attack is ludicrous. What Trump is proposing is not peace, but surrender. Ukraine has fought valiantly for 3 years, and with more Western support, could have turned the tide. Instead, Trump's approach effectively rewards Russian aggression and sets a dangerous precedent for future conflicts. If Ukraine is forced to accept a deal that cedes territory to Putin, it will send a clear message to other authoritarian leaders. Invasion works. The double standards of justice. Another recent controversy highlights the disturbing double standards in modern justice systems. Chelsea footballer Sam Kerr was cleared of racially abusing a police officer despite calling him "things stupid and white." Had the roles been reversed, and a white athlete had called an officer of color "things stupid and black," there is little doubt that the outcome would have been different. This case underscores the inconsistencies in how racial abuse is prosecuted. Justice should be blind. Yet time and time again, we see cases where ideological bias influences legal outcomes. The lack of accountability in this instance is yet another example of how fairness and equal treatment under the law are increasingly under threat. Conclusion. Where do we go from here? Rachel Reeves's track record of dishonesty and financial mismanagement is a major concern, and her continued presence in government is an insult to the British public. Keir Starmer's promise to restore trust in politics has proven to be nothing more than empty rhetoric, and his willingness to protect Reeves, Sue Gray, and others within his inner circle reveals a troubling pattern. As Britain grapples with economic turmoil, international instability, and a culture of hypocrisy at the highest levels of power, it is clear that meaningful change is needed. Until accountability becomes a genuine priority, we will continue to see figures like Reeves rise to positions of influence despite their glaring shortcomings. The British people deserve better. So what do you guys think about this update? Let me know in the comment below. If you like my video, please press like button and subscribe for more. Hope I'll see you in next video.